So, yeah, thank you just for this conversation. So I'm currently a quality engineering manager at EasyJet. So I kind of lead the software testing effort across two key projects that we're doing at the moment. It's a big strategic program, so there's kind of a lot of things to think about.
Hmm.
Um, but how I really started is I didn't know anything about technology. I didn't know what a database is, a cookie, and that kind of thing. And what happened to me is I did a kind of a stint in the development department in my first company,
Hmm.
and I helped with the software testing effort. And one of the managers just saw something in me, and they said, "Do you want to have a role as a software tester?" So I thought, why not? It's a bit
Nice.
more suitable to me, I thought, than sort of an account manager. I just really love digging in the technical detail. And something that I've done recently for a project, well, a personal program, is to draw out my timeline and who influenced me.
Love
And
that.
what I found really interesting is that it wasn't the managers in the team that influenced me the most. It was the people on the ground doing the work that were open to helping me. So teaching me what a cookie was, what a
Hmm.
database was, all of these good things. And I feel because I had such a good team to start out with that, you know, were open to questions and me questioning and asking, that I was really able to build up my technical acumen. So I think curiosity and asking questions has really helped me in my career.
Oh,
So
good.
I kind of stayed with that theme throughout my journey. So I started at an email marketing company, and then
Hmm.
I went off to various other companies like insurance and so on. Um, but I had this person that gave me some really good advice once. And they said, if you want to be a test manager or get to that kind of level, if that's what you want to do, then work on a lot of stuff. So
Yep.
I think that gave me the ambition to work on a lot of different projects and not quite job hop, but just seeing different opportunities and being
Mm.
open to something. So that's kind of that really stuck in my mind. Just work on a lot of different things and be open. I know people say to specialize in something like security or automation, but for me, I have not done that. I've like
Hmm.
worked on so many different things, and I feel like it's really helped in my career, kind of have that holistic kind of view. And I think another thing in terms of me is that I've had moments where I haven't had confidence at all, but other moments where I actually think I can do this.
Hmm.
I actually can go for that interview or that management role and see what happens. So the kind of last couple of years when I worked at Sage, I really learned a lot about failure and
Hmm.
experimentation. And actually, you're going to fail more than you're going to succeed. So if, for example, I applied for 10 roles, maybe I only hear one back, and that is okay. It's just a part of the process. So I think just being open to experimenting, believing in yourself, I think
Hmm.
I think sometimes men are more likely to apply for something if if there's something that's not, they don't quite meet the criteria. But as women, we say, oh no, we can't do that. That's not for us. And I
Hmm.
think if we can switch that around and just let's have a go and experiment and try it out, and you just never know. So
Yes.
yeah.
No, I agree. I think it's something like, yeah, women, unless we tick every single box, we won't apply. Whereas, typically we find statistically men will go, I tick, 3 out of 10 of these boxes, I'll apply anyway. And, when you kind of say about having to get more confident, I mean, we all have kind of faced imposter syndrome, I guess. And what advice would you give, someone for getting over that and overcoming imposter syndrome?
I feel what I do sometimes is I have a brag list. So
Nice.
at the end of the week, I do a little brag, and I was like, oh, I had a really good conversation with someone about quality engineering, and I put it on my brag list. And I think over time, when I'm having those down moments, I have a look at this brag list. But I think also to get feedback from other people. Because
Hmm.
if you don't get feedback, you actually don't realize what you're doing well in
I
as
agree.
well. So getting that feedback, I mean, my current boss has been brilliant over that, and not only like giving me things to improve, but also saying what I'm good at. And that's kind of
Hmm.
helped me like I'm on the right track. Because if you don't ask the question, like, am I on the right track? I think that's when you start building that imposter syndrome and like, am I doing the right thing? I don't know. So I think speaking to people, your colleagues at work, but also network and speak to other
Hmm.
people and say that I'm doing this thing at work. Like, have you got, what do you think? Am I on the right track? And you can be quite generic. You don't want to give away the company secrets or anything like that, but
Uh-huh.
just generally your approaches and things like that. So yeah, those are a few things.
No, I love that. I think that's a great idea. And I love the idea of kind of the brag list as well, because I've had it before where I'll get imposter syndrome, and I almost kind of look in the mirror and I
Yeah.
will convince myself that I've got this and I can do this, and then it weirdly helps, doesn't it? If you hype yourself up sometimes, it definitely helps. Or writing down, achievements and things you're proud of, I find is always a really good way as well. So no, that's really helpful. And obviously you've had a really impressive career. I've looked at your LinkedIn, you've got a great background. What are you most proud of in your career?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think for me, it was getting out of my comfort zone and doing public speaking.
Yeah.
So now I've been on a fantastic journey where I've had the opportunity to speak at international conferences. And just to explain where I started, sometimes I would be, when I first started out, when we were in stand up, I used to go a little bit red and
Oh.
embarrassed. And, I was that kind of person that was kind of quite shy, I suppose. I didn't like public speaking. I even had to go onto a telephone interview kind of techniques course because I was
Oh
just
wow.
really bad and rubbish at it. But I feel like you can really work on stuff that you're not so good at. And I feel like I've just really proud of that, looking from where I
Hmm.
was, going red in stand up, to now getting on stage and sharing my thoughts and feelings. And a part of it is just getting on and doing it. The
Yeah.
first time shaking like hell, but I've just found that the more times you do it, the better you get at it. So I think it's just going from that fear zone, isn't it? I
Hmm.
really can't do this, no way, to actually pushing yourself and think, you know what, I can do this.
Hmm. No, I love that. And I would have never thought you were kind of shy or, sort of nervous, because I think actually talking to you now, you come across as super confident. So it's obviously done you a world of good, hasn't it, doing those kind of things? And I always think get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then you can't really go wrong, can you?
Yeah.
Um, but no, that's super helpful. And obviously, I know you kind of mentioned as well that a lot of the environments you've worked in have been sort of very male dominated. So what kind of challenges have you faced kind of being in that male dominated environment? Have you faced a lot of biases or?
Oh, I've been through a lot of interesting things. I think there
Hmm.
is a lot of bias in the workplace. I mean, a common story I talk about is that there were comments about me wearing a dress.
Yes.
Like, Melissa, you wear too many, you wear dresses a lot. And I was like, well, I am the only female in the group of 25 here. So yeah, I guess it is going to stand out a little bit. Um, but I've also dealt with, I don't know, lots of various things in terms of perhaps they wouldn't ask me the question, they would ask my male technology
Hmm.
manager, or say they would tell me how to test and how to go about test strategy. And you get to a point where you have to justify yourself, and it's really
Hmm.
bizarre. And you actually have to say, you know what, I've got 15 years experience here, and I've like led teams to success in kind of loads of different projects. So it feels a little bit sad when you have to get to that
Mm.
point. However, I kind of feel fight the good fight, and I'm going to stand up and say I've got the experience here. And actually, thank you for your input about the testing thoughts. However, let me take that away and think about it, and I'll make my own mind up. Um,
Nice.
Yeah, it's something that I think we face as software testers a lot in terms of being
Hmm.
told what to do. And it's actually, yes, I appreciate your feedback. I want your feedback, but actually, I'm the expert at the end of the day, and I'm going to make my own decision.
No, good for you. And I think that's a great answer as well. So yeah, and I think, so many women I speak to have faced kind of similar situations as well. So no, I really appreciate that. That's really good to know. Um, and as a whole, do you think kind of obviously with sort of encouraging more girls and women into tech, we are seeing an uplift in how many women are kind of getting into technology. But do you think we're doing enough as a whole to increase that?
I feel a lot of great work is being done.
Hmm.
For example, at my current company at EasyJet, I'm on a women's leadership development program, and there's
Nice.
about 30 other people on this program, and I'm just like, good on you. That's
Hmm.
absolutely awesome, and I feel it's the first company I've really worked at that really has that kind of really
Yeah.
diverse skills. I feel that we do need to do more.
Mhm.
And a part of it is just lifting each other up, right? So sometimes what I see on LinkedIn, for example, is that, for example, if a male posts an article, they can get tons of likes and comments and things, whereas a female with the same kind of message and article doesn't get the right, traction with it.
Lower
I
engagement.
Yeah, low engagement. And I'm sure there's lots of reasons that could be the cause of that. But I just feel like we need to support each other and raise each
Mhm.
other up. So if you see something really good, like it, share it. Let's talk about some great women, what they're doing. Because we're half the population, aren't we?
Yeah.
So there's loads of great stuff that we're doing. I think let's help each other raise the visibility
Mhm.
of what we're doing. There's so many great allies out there that support women as well. So yeah, thank you to all the allies really supporting
Mhm.
us and raising our visibility.
No, I agree. And yeah, completely. And I think as well, it's even things like just being a bit more flexible. I had conversations with a client before who was saying, well, what we've done is we've introduced flexible hours, we've introduced hybrid working, if people, not just women. And I think historically, we've obviously always been the homemakers. We've had the responsibility of looking after the children. I think
Yeah,
actually by increasing flexibility across the whole business, you kind of take those gender norms away, don't you? And I think it opens up equal opportunities more for men and women. Because I think we obviously normally have to choose between career or having a family, don't we? Whereas our male
mhm,
counterparts don't seem to have to make that sacrifice. I think if you can have more flexibility in general, I think it helps massively as well.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I've definitely seen that too. And how much do you think the industry has changed since you got into it? 'Cause you said you've been in this industry about 15 years now, didn't you?
Yeah,
Mm,
oh, it's a tough question.
mm,
I feel there's a lot of good work that has gone on. Um, but just so much more to be done. I mean, I'm really looking forward to the day when we don't have separate women leadership programs, when we
yes.
don't have separate women communities, because then we'll know that, actually we're on the same terms.
Mhm,
Um, Flexibility. Yeah, it's been, for me personally, it's been tough in the past, having to pay really large nursery fees and so on.
mm,
But I think a lot of companies are catching on to that. So as you're saying, the flexibility of companies can provide that, it just makes a world of a difference.
mm,
We can pick up our children from school or nursery, we can go to their school events. I mean, and there's just so many things that it just supports kind of work-life balance,
mhm.
doesn't it? And we really want that at the moment in this kind of century.
No, I agree. And I think, yeah, you've got a sick child, I can work from home. Great. I don't need to take a day off, but I can tend to the poorly child and still get my work done. And I think it's the best of both worlds, isn't it? But yeah, we're seeing a massive increase in flexibility, and I think that's
Wow,
great.
good.
So yeah, really positive. Um, and I always sort of quite enjoy asking this question. What piece of advice do you wish someone gave you at the beginning of your career?
Oh, that's a really great question. I mean, I did get a lot of good advice, as I said, to work on lots of
Yes.
different things. That was really good. Um, I think one thing for me personally is to have more confidence in
Mhm.
myself. And actually, I am good enough. I mean, there's
Mhm.
been a lot of times where I've doubted myself and like, can I actually do this? But I feel like we're all on that journey where we're trying to figure stuff out, and it's all about continuous learning. So I think for me is just have that self-confidence a little bit more and just believe in yourself. You can do it. um, and if I may sneak one in, is to get involved in sort of testing communities earlier. I
Mhm.
didn't do that at the start of my career, and looking back, I wish I'd done it sooner because there's so much I could have learned earlier in my career from other people. So
Mhm.
there's lots of communities on LinkedIn, there's Ministry of Testing, like
Yeah.
so many different ones. So there's a lot of people you can learn from.
No, I think that's really great advice as well, especially to sort of anyone that might be starting out in their career. Not even just on the test side of things, there are lots of groups sort of for the whole of technology, isn't there, that you can get
Yeah,
involved in. So no, I think that's great advice. And obviously I know you mentioned that your company are doing the leadership programs, aren't they, for women? What challenges have you had to overcome? Because obviously you're a sort of a manager or
mhm.
sort of lead within the business. So have you kind of had to overcome certain challenges when you're trying to hire more females within your company?
Yeah, I think, oh, that's a really good question. I think for me, I haven't had that problem so much.
Oh,
We
good.
we try and do. There's things that you can do, right, isn't it? Like remove the name when you're reviewing a
Yeah.
CV, just making sure there's no, personal data about what gender they are and
Or
so
year
on.
of birth and all of that.
Yeah, but what I find with that is that you need to, for interviews, have a few people involved, so to avoid that kind of bias. So, like, if you've got an interview and it's just two men, it's probably not very appropriate, is it? You need different perspectives
hmm
of who you're bringing in. Um, but yeah, what's your experience in that? I'd love to learn. Is there a challenge there in terms of, yeah, interviews?
Yeah, so I mean, when I obviously speak to a lot of my clients who are sort of at the moment trying to improve their
Mhm.
diversity, because I've had a few people come to me and say, look, I'll be honest with you, we've been rubbish at prioritizing this.
Right.
What can we do to hire more women? And well, I've kind of sat with them and we've gone through how they've even written the job specs. I've said,
Right.
actually, this is you must have a long list of things. I'm like, look, let's change the wording on this. Actually, let's make it a lot more inclusive. And I sort of tend to say to them at the end, say, look, even if you don't tick every box, let's still have a chat. And also providing learning and development, clear
Right.
progression paths for women as well. I think, and like you said with the interview panel, if you've got like three or four just men sat there, you probably start thinking, well, is there really a future for me here if all of the
Right.
management are male?
Yeah.
So I think even just even if the women aren't necessarily really senior in the business, I'm like, if you've got an engineer who's been with your company for 6 to 12 months, get them on the interview panel anyway, because they can talk about their experience of working there and, have quite a comfortable conversation with that interviewer. So I was advised that as well. And I think, yeah, being flexible and paying men and women the same,
Oh,
not
good topic.
underpaying women. Oh, don't get me started. Have you had sort of experiences of being paid less than your male counterparts in the past?
Oh, it's really difficult because how do you ask? Hey, tech manager, what are you on? I mean, it's a very taboo subject, isn't it?
Yes. I
A
mean, I've
difficult
I've
one.
found out through talking to male colleagues at previous employers. I've worked at a business, one of my previous employers, and I've been there longer than some of my male counterparts and had more experience. And we quite openly discussed salary. And I found out I was paid far less than any of the men. And I went
Wow.
straight to my manager and said, "Hang on a minute. Why is my value less?" And they couldn't answer it. And it was just, "I'm so sorry, that's an error." And I thought, yeah, I bet it is.
Yeah, pay rise,
Um,
please. Yeah.
but yeah, no, I just quite confidently outed them. I just said, look, I'm aware of this. Can you please explain to me the reasons? And Yeah,
Uh,
couldn't really.
That's a really great. It's great for you to share that story, because I'm sure a lot of other women might be in that situation and how to handle it.
Yeah,
So
or
you,
afraid to.
yeah, so you were really transparent and just
Hmm.
asked them. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Just, and I think had they've sat there and said, well, because you lack X, Y, and Z, or actually there are training issues here, and we need to, once you've done X, Y, and Z, you will be on this money. But I think, yeah, they couldn't give me an actual good answer as to why. And lo and behold, it was fixed the following month.
Wow.
So yeah, my
Mhm.
advice would be, if you are paid less than your male counterparts and you can't think why, I would probably have that direct conversation with your manager, go about it in a diplomatic way and just say, hey, look, I've been made aware that I am being paid less. Can we talk about how I can get to the level where I'm being paid the same as my male colleagues, and what the rhyme and reason is for it. Um, so, I mean, have you experienced that as well in the past?
Um, I think for me, I've just not had the confidence to ask.
Mm.
So I think that's probably probably a lot of other people face as well. Like, how do you ask that question? If you're comfortable to have that conversation, it's definitely one I'm going to think about in the future, to see
Yes.
if I can see if yeah, colleagues are happy to speak about that. Some will be, some won't be, and that's okay. But if you've got close relationships, I guess why not? And ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think as well, if you're sort of joining a new company as well, I think there are certain ways you can probably ask about kind of pay between sort of, men and women within the business.
Right.
Because obviously a lot of companies do publish their quite transparent, and do publish their pay gaps. So I
Right.
think, if everyone was a bit more upfront and transparent, or, some companies I hire for, they have a very clear salary banding, and it's, we pay between this and this depending on years of experience, and it is, everyone falls within this category. We've not got people doing the same job on completely different salaries. And I think, if you're open and honest from the get-go, you shouldn't have these problems. But I think if it's all very hush hush, and because I've got one or two clients who don't like to publish the salary expectations for a role, and I think we're kind of discouraging candidates from applying, and you also
Yeah.
are encouraging that sort of discrepancy between salaries, which is when people start talking. So I
Yeah.
think if you're upfront from the get-go about what's on offer, then you shouldn't really have these problems, should you? In theory, um,
Yeah.
in theory being the big part there. Um, so. Okay, no, that's really helpful. And what advice? Obviously, I know you're sort of quite senior now, and you've obviously been in this industry for a while. But what advice would you give to other female leaders who are perhaps starting out in their management careers?
Oh, that's really good. I think network and speak to other managers.
Mhm.
What I have found is that people are really helpful and they want to support other people, actually.
Mhm.
There've been moments where I've been stuck on a problem, and I've asked someone outside, for example, my company, and they've provided some really good support and advice. So I think just reaching out to your network, and just learning from others. There's a lot of good conferences, isn't there? A lot of good
Mhm.
blogging and content that you can look at. But if you can, at work, what I did, I think it was at Sage where I worked, and also Destra, that we had a little management community. So we
Mhm.
created a little management community, and I was quite new, for example, at Destra, being a test manager, and they were really supportive,
Mhm.
and I was able to speak to these other managers about maybe some people management issues, or I wasn't sure about how to really direct the strategy with something. And I
Mhm.
was just really open with what I was kind of finding difficult. And I found that when I was open and shared that, I got the support that I needed.
Mhm.
So they gave some really good tips and kind of direction. So I guess advice I would give is just to be open to what you don't know and what
Mhm.
you need to learn. And then if you understand that, then you can find the information just to improve on certain aspects. So really just being open-minded, and I think also as a manager, just be kind to yourself. I
Mhm.
think I found it a bit of a journey in terms of learning. Well, I still am learning how to be like a better manager, being a person there for the team. And sometimes you are going to make mistakes. That's okay. It's just a part of the
Yeah.
journey with any type of role. So just give yourself some grace. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that's really great advice. So no, I really appreciate that. Thank you.